Montana's early winter settles like a bruise across the flatlands, pressing gray clouds low over the landscape. The livestock auction barn stands at the edge of a nearly empty parking lot, headlights slanting through the sleet. It's late in the day. The heater inside the barn can barely keep up, so breath fogs the air as people huddle in the stands, boots tapping against old wood, everyone restless to go home. Cows have come and gone, a few stringy goats, a lot of cheap talk and hard bargains. The smell of hay, manure, and stale coffee is thick as a blanket. Nobody's expecting anything interesting now. Not until the last lot, a massive battered draft mare lumbers into the ring, hooves clopping, tail matted with ice. She's a rusty chestnut, coat ragged, ribs showing under her enormous frame. A wide white blaze runs down her face, and her left eye is cloudy, milky blue and blank. She's old, maybe broken down, maybe just unlucky. The ringman, lean, red-faced, tries to keep his pitch light. Here's a real piece of work, folks. Pull your trucks up. She can stop a door for you in a windstorm. Or maybe you just want a lawn ornament. Laughter skids around the ring. Someone snorts, "Door stop!" and it sticks. She's door stopped now, and everyone's eyes slide away. The auctioneer calls for a bid. Silence. Again, nothing. He makes a show of wiping his brow, fanning the air like the mare's stink is too much. No takers? She'll eat your paycheck and die on you. In the back row, Joanna Pierce sits very still. Her face is sharp-edged, pale under a knit hat, hands jammed deep in her coat. She's alone except for a teenage girl beside her, arms crossed, earbuds jammed in, eyes glued to her phone. That's Emery, her 14-year-old foster daughter, and she's been radiating silent defiance all day. They don't fit in here. Joanna's boots are too clean, her jacket medical issue, not ranch wear, and Emery's city cool just looks bored. The bidding is about to close when Joanna clears her throat, soft but certain. She raises her hand, just high enough to catch the auctioneer's eye. A hush drops. The auctioneer blinks, caught off guard, then grins like this is the punchline. "Ma'am, you serious?" He waits, but Joanna just nods, slow and deliberate. The crowd twists to stare at her, then at Emery. The air gets colder. Emery leans in, whispering out of the corner of her mouth. "You're joking, right? Please tell me you're not doing this." Joanna doesn't answer. Her fingers tighten around her checkbook. For a heartbeat, there's nothing but the sound of the mare's breathing, rough, almost defiant. Someone in the crowd mutters, "That's that ER nurse, the one who lost it last year." Another, louder, "Maybe she wants another charity case." Laughter again, sharper this time, edged with pity and something else. The auctioneer's gavel comes down, and suddenly it's real. Joanna owns the most unwanted horse in the county. Joanna walks forward, pen trembling in her hand as she writes the check. The auction staff try not to look her in the eye. Emery hangs back, eyes burning, jaw clenched so tight it hurts. The wind outside has picked up, howling through the cracks in the doors. By the time Joanna and Emery lead the mare outside, sleet stings their faces. The horse plants her feet, nostrils flaring, as if the storm itself is a personal insult. "Why her?" Emery says, voice cracking. "You don't even know what's wrong with her." Joanna meets her eyes, really meets them, which she hasn't done in weeks. "That's exactly why." She strokes the mare's coarse neck, feeling the scars and old wounds beneath her hand. The animal trembles but doesn't bolt. The cold is bone deep now. They trudge to the battered trailer, Emery shivering, Joanna guiding the mare with a gentleness that's almost stubborn. People watch from the barn door, shaking their heads. Someone yells, "Good luck! She'll put you in the hospital next." Joanna loads the mare herself, refusing help, even when her hands go numb. Emery stands off to the side, trying to hide the way she wipes her face on her sleeve. Inside the truck, Emery sits rigid, staring at the windshield. Are we seriously doing this? Joanna turns the key, engine coughing to life. Yes. Her voice is steady, but inside she's unraveling. Memories of the ER, of broken bodies and frantic nights, surfacing like ice on a pond. She glances in the rear view, catching the mare's silhouette in the trailer light. The journey home is silent but electric. Every bump on the road a jolt to something raw. The blizzard worsens as they reach the old farm. Half the windows cracked, fences sagging, the barn looming like an accusation. The headlights barely cut the snow. Joanna backs the trailer up, Emery fumbling with the latch. The mare, Maple she decides then, not doorstop, stumbles out, shaking, her breath puffing in the dark. They lead her into the barn, where the stalls are musty and the hay is more hope than substance. Maple turns in a slow circle, eyes rolling, muscles bunched like she's ready to explode. Joanna strokes her again, murmuring nonsense, anything to keep her grounded. Emery slams the stall door, muttering, "This is insane, she's gonna kill us." Joanna lingers, leaning against the cold wood, watching Maple's sides heave. She wants to say something, anything, to make it better, but the words knot in her throat. Instead, she listens to the wind rattle the roof, the storm outside finding every weakness. For the first time in a long time, she wonders if she's made a mistake. But when Maple looks at her, something like defiance flashes in that clouded eye. Later, after the barn is closed up and Emery has stomped off to her room, Joanna stands alone in the kitchen, hands shaking over a chipped mug of tea. She's not sure what's more terrifying, the horse in her barn or the silence pressing in around her. She watches the snow swirl past the window, and for a second, she sees herself reflected in the glass, worn down, battered, but still standing. Out in the barn, Maple stomps once, twice, as if declaring, "I'm still here." Joanna nods, a fierce little smile breaking through. So am I. The morning after the blizzard, everything is frozen stiff. The sun is a white blur behind a wall of frost, and the farm is silent except for the groan of old trees under the weight of snow. Inside the barn, the air is bitter, cold enough to numb fingers, but Joanna is already there, bundled in an old parka, determination painted in the tight set of her jaw. She approaches Maple's stall, the old draft mare standing hunched in the straw, her body tense, nostrils wide, ears pinned flat against her skull. Emery is nowhere to be seen, her bedroom door slammed, music thumping from the other end of the house. Joanna feels the distance like a bruise, but she pushes it down, focusing on the horse. She sets out a bucket of warm mash, oats soaked and steaming in the cold. Maple doesn't move, not a step forward. Instead, she watches Joanna with that clouded left eye, the good one flicking from the bucket to the door, calculating escape routes. Joanna crouches, speaking softly, coaxing. "Come on, girl, you're safe here. No one's gonna hurt you, not anymore." The words hang in the cold, unanswered. Maple's breathing turns shallow, body trembling. When Joanna steps closer, the mare snaps her teeth in the air. A warning shot. Joanna freezes, heart pounding, but keeps her voice steady. "I know you're scared. I get it." She inches forward, fingers outstretched, offering a carrot from her pocket. Maple stares, then slams her head away, the carrot dropping into the straw untouched. Hours drag by. Joanna checks her phone. No messages. She'd texted Emery, just a simple, "Can you help with chores?" But the silence says everything. Emery wants nothing to do with this. With her. Joanna sighs, shoulders heavy, and grabs a rake, cleaning out the stall while Maple snorts, every muscle strung tight. By noon, the snow has started to melt, turning the barnyard into slush. Joanna glances at the road, hoping for the vet, for a neighbor, for anyone. But there's no one. Just her and the horse. Emery finally appears around lunch, hair pulled into a messy knot, face set in a mask of teenage defiance. She stands in the doorway, hands shoved deep into her hoodie pockets, gaze icy. She still won't eat? Joanna shakes her head, rubbing her sore neck. Not a bite. I thought maybe, if you came in, she might settle. Emery laughs, sharp as a slap. Why? She doesn't know me. She doesn't want anyone. This is a waste, Joanna. She turns to leave but pauses at the door, voice softening just a hair. You know, you could have picked any other horse, one that wasn't broken. Joanna's reply is a whisper, almost lost in the barn's gloom. Sometimes the ones everyone leaves behind are the ones who need us the most. But Emery is already gone, boots splashing through the slush as she storms back toward the house. The day grinds on. Joanna hauls fresh water, checks Maple's legs for injuries, lays out a thick blanket. Every gesture is met with resistance. Maple swings her hindquarters, pins her ears, even lashes out when Joanna tries to adjust the blanket. A powerful back hoof slices the air and catches Joanna square in the shoulder, the impact knocking her sideways into the stall wall. Pain explodes in her arm, her breath sucked away. For a moment, she just sits in the straw, humiliated, blinking back tears. Fine, she mutters, voice shaking. You don't want my help? I get it. She drags herself to her feet, cradling her bruised arm, pride wounded far deeper than flesh. Joanna limps back to the house, slamming the door behind her. The kitchen is too bright, too quiet. She stares at her own reflection in the window, eyes rimmed red. In the silence, doubt creeps in like a cold draft. Maybe everyone at the auction was right. Maybe some things are just too broken to save. That night, after a dinner neither of them touches, Joanna sits alone at the kitchen table, swirling tea she won't drink. Emery lingers in the doorway, arms folded tight across her chest. There's an accusation in the silence, and Joanna feels it settle between them, like a wall. She breaks first. Maybe I made a mistake bringing her here. She doesn't want saving. She doesn't even want to live. The admission costs her more than she'll say out loud. Emery's reply comes softly, unexpected. Neither did you. When they dragged you out of that hospital. The words hit like a hammer. Joanna looks up, startled. Emery is staring at the floor, voice low. They told me what happened, why you left, why you never went back. You wouldn't let anyone in for months. You wouldn't talk. You barely ate. It was like you'd rather disappear. She meets Joanna's eyes, fierce and vulnerable all at once. Maybe you and that horse have more in common than you think. For a moment, everything is suspended. Hurt, anger, pride. Joanna's hands tremble. She wants to deny it, to protest, but the words won't come. She thinks of that night at the hospital, the blue-white lights, the shriek of alarms, the way her mind just froze. She's been running ever since. The tension in the room shifts, softening around the edges. Emery steps into the kitchen, sliding into a chair opposite Joanna. You didn't want to be saved either, but you're still here. She is too. That's got to mean something, right? Joanna swallows hard, fighting tears. She reaches across the table, hesitant, and Emery doesn't pull away. The silence between them is heavier now, but it's not empty. It's full of things unsaid, wounds still healing, hope flickering under the surface. Out in the barn, the wind rattles the door, but Joanna hears Maple's hooves shifting in the straw, the steady thud of a heart still fighting. That night, Joanna stands by the window, looking out at the barn lit by a single yellow bulb. Emery sits on the couch, sketchbook in her lap, eyes flicking to the window, then to Joanna. For the first time since Maple arrived, the house doesn't feel quite so cold. Joanna whispers into the dark, "Maybe we're all just trying to find someone who won't give up on us." She presses her palm to the glass, as if sending strength out across the frozen yard. And somewhere in the barn, the old mare lifts her head, listening to the quiet sounds of a home that, for the first time in a long time, hasn't given up just yet. Montana's storm breaks overnight, leaving the world glazed and sparkling in the dawn. Icicles dangle from the barn roof like crystal daggers, and the snow across the paddocks shines, untouched except for a single set of wide hoofprints leading from the trailer to the barn. Inside, the air is thick with the musty scent of old hay, damp leather, and the quiet breath of two people and one stubborn horse. Joanna Pierce is up before sunrise, boots crunching on frosty boards as she checks the old mare. Maple stands with her back to the stall door, shoulders hunched, head hanging, an unmoving, silent sentinel. Her clouded left eye catches a shaft of sunlight, making it look almost silver. Joanna is careful, moving slow, keeping her voice gentle as she lays fresh bedding and offers clean water. Maple doesn't react except to flick an ear and watch, wary and wounded. When Joanna tries again with a bucket of mash, Maple sniffs but turns away, lips pressed tight. The standoff is old as time, an animal that has learned the world is dangerous, a woman still learning how to prove otherwise. Joanna stays anyway. She leans against the stall, recounting memories to fill the silence. Stories about her first rescue cat, about the way her mother used to braid her hair before school, about the little victories of the past. Her words echo through the barn, falling on Maple's indifferent ears, but Joanna is persistent. "You're safe here," she repeats, as much for herself as for the horse. Later that morning, Emery appears in the barn doorway, hands jammed in her jacket, sketchbook clutched to her chest. She hovers, silent, watching as Joanna sweeps. It's clear Emery isn't here to help. She's just looking for somewhere else to be. Joanna doesn't push, but nods toward the far stall where an old stool sits. Emery drifts over and perches, flipping open her sketchbook, the scratch of pencil against paper, a soft counterpoint to Maple's restless shuffling. Outside, the world is waking up. The drip of melting snow patters on the roof. A neighbor's pickup rumbles past on the road, muffled by distance. Joanna glances up to see Emery sketching, quick, shy lines, eyes darting from Maple to the page and back. Joanna can't help but smile. "She's got a good profile," she says, just loud enough to be heard. Emery shrugs, but she doesn't stop drawing. The first real shift comes that afternoon. Joanna, bent over a broken fence post near the barn, feels the weight of eyes on her back. She turns and sees Maple, head over the stall door, watching her. Not snorting or stomping, just watching, ears forward, curious for the first time. Joanna sets her hammer down and approaches, slow and sideways, speaking in soft nonsense. Maple doesn't move away. Joanna reaches out, and though Maple flinches, she doesn't bolt. Her muzzle brushes Joanna's glove. Just a whisper of contact, gone as quickly as it comes. It's nothing and everything, all at once. When Joanna brings fresh hay later, Maple noses it, then looks past Joanna to where Emery sits reading on a bale of straw. Joanna stands aside, heart pounding, as Emery reads aloud from her book, her voice awkward, then growing in confidence as she sees Maple listening, not spooking, not turning away. Joanna watches, barely breathing. The next morning, something extraordinary happens. Joanna opens the stall and sets out Maple's feed as usual, but the mare stands frozen. Joanna is about to give up when Emery wanders in, rubbing her eyes, sketchbook tucked under her arm. She sits by the stall, back against the wood, and begins to read softly. Maple flicks an ear, shuffles, then, slowly, almost sheepishly, takes a step forward. She noses the bucket, sniffs, and finally begins to eat. Joanna watches from the shadows, emotion thick in her chest. She wants to call out, to praise, but she stays silent, afraid of breaking the fragile spell. Emery keeps reading, voice low and steady, and Maple eats every bite, not even looking up until she's finished. Afterward, Joanna and Emery sit side by side outside the stall, not speaking, but not uncomfortable. For the first time, it feels less like they're sharing a burden and more like they're sharing a secret. A quiet language is taking shape, one of patience, of presence, of learning to stay even when it's hard. That afternoon, as Joanna repairs more fencing, she finds herself humming, her mind lighter than it's been in months. She glances over her shoulder, surprised to see Maple following her along the fence line, just on the other side, step for step. Not close enough to touch, but close enough to trust. Emery sketches in the sun, watching Maple, drawing the same horse again and again from different angles. Once, Joanna catches Emery watching her too, and their eyes meet. Joanna smiles, a question in her gaze, and Emery shrugs, lips twitching in the smallest of smiles before returning to her sketch. Evening falls slowly over the ranch. Joanna feeds Maple again, this time with Emery beside her, reading from a battered paperback about wild horses. Maple listens, eating calmly, her body language transformed, ears pricked, muscles loose, one hind leg cocked at ease. As the sky turns pink and purple, Joanna leans against the stall door, listening to Emery's voice, the gentle munching of hay, and the soft sighs of an old mare finally willing to believe in something new. For the first time since winter began, the barn feels almost warm. Later, inside the house, Joanna finds Emery's sketchbook left open on the table, a pencil drawing of Maple, regal and strong, head high, scars barely visible. Next to it, Emery has written a single line. Sometimes it takes a quiet place to learn how to stay. Joanna smiles, a lump in her throat. She glances out at the barn, where Maple rustles in her stall, and feels, for the first time in a long time, that maybe she can stay too. Days turn into weeks, the slow thaw of winter creeping across the ranch. Icicles shrink and drip, the paddocks turning from white to muddy brown. Life settles into a fragile routine. Joanna rises with the dawn, makes coffee in the pale blue light, then bundles herself in flannel and boots to greet Maple in the barn. Each morning brings tiny changes, a nicker when she approaches, a curious nudge when Joanna lays out fresh hay. They are small victories, barely noticeable, but Joanna clings to them. She knows trust, once shattered, comes back in quiet fragments. Emery is changing too. Where she once avoided the barn, she now shows up every afternoon, sketchbook in hand, sometimes reading aloud, sometimes just sitting near Maple's stall, legs tucked under her. Her sketches grow bolder. Maple rearing, Maple's eyes wide and alert. Maple and Joanna together in the paddock. Sometimes, Emery adds scraps of poetry, fragments that linger in Joanna's mind long after she closes the book. Still, there's distance between them, the weight of unspoken things, but it's less a wall and more a fence, something that can be crossed with patience. One cold evening, after chores are finished, Joanna lingers in Maple's stall. The barn is quiet, dust swirling in shafts of late sunlight. She removes Maple's old blanket, revealing a patchwork of scars along the mare's withers and flanks. long white ridges and smaller pinkish craters. Joanna has seen wounds like these before, back when she was a nurse. The after effects of neglect, old harness rubs, maybe even the cruel bite of a whip. She fills a bucket with warm water and mixes in antiseptic ointment, moving slow and careful as she cleans the worst of Maple's scars. The mare stands rock still, her sides heaving, head turned just enough to watch Joanna's every move. Joanna's hands tremble as she works. She thinks of the patients she once cared for, of the trauma cases that haunted her dreams. Broken bones, torn skin, eyes wide with fear. She remembers one night in particular, when a child came in, no older than Emery, blue and still from cardiac arrest. Joanna's mind froze. Her hands wouldn't move. Other nurses pushed her aside, voices sharp with panic and accusation. The memory is a scar that will never heal, and in this quiet barn, under Maple's wary gaze, it aches all over again. As she gently rubs ointment into an old wound on Maple's shoulder, Joanna speaks, voice barely a whisper. "I thought I was stronger than this. I thought nothing could break me. But sometimes the world just takes too much, and you can't fix what's left." Maple shifts, leaning into her touch, and Joanna swallows a lump in her throat. "I know what it's like to be hurt and scared and angry at everyone who tries to help. I know it's hard to trust again." A shadow fills the stall doorway. Emery stands there, silent, watching. Joanna flinches, embarrassed to be caught talking to the horse, but Emery doesn't tease or laugh. Instead, she kneels beside Joanna, hands tucked into her sleeves. After a moment, she reaches out, just touching Maple's neck, her fingers grazing the old scars. "Maple probably thought she was tougher too," Emery says softly. "Before all this happened to her, she probably thought she'd never need anyone." She glances at Joanna, then quickly away, cheeks red. "Sometimes you don't get to choose what hurts you." Joanna is struck by the wisdom in Emery's voice, the sadness there, and realizes how much they all have in common. Scars, some visible, some buried deep. They work in silence, caring for Maple, the old mare breathing quietly between them, a living link in their shared chain of loss and healing. The next day, Joanna finds Emery sitting outside Maple's stall, reading her poetry out loud. Her voice is low, barely above a whisper, but Maple listens, unmoving. Joanna joins her, sliding down the wall to sit shoulder to shoulder with Emery, and they listen to the rhythm of Maple's breath, the slow crumbling of barriers between them. The barn feels warm, filled with the sound of words and hope. One afternoon, a neighbor, Mr. Withers, drops by. He leans against the paddock fence, arms folded, hat pulled low. "You're wasting your time with that old draft horse," he says, voice gruff. "Some things can't be fixed, you know." Joanna wipes her hands on her jeans, looking him in the eye. "Maybe, but sometimes it's not about fixing. Sometimes it's just about showing up." Mr. Withers snorts, but his eyes soften as he watches Emery sketching Maple under a patch of weak sun. Later, while mucking stalls, Joanna feels a sudden wave of dizziness, her shoulder throbbing from Maple's earlier kick. Emery notices, hurries over, and takes the pitchfork from her hands. "I got this," she insists. Joanna sits on an overturned bucket, wincing, but secretly grateful. They work side by side, the silence between them now filled with the gentle rhythm of chores, the comfort of company. That evening, as snow drifts down, Joanna sits with Emery at the kitchen table, Emery's sketchbook open between them. Emery turns the pages, showing Joanna each drawing, Maple grazing, Maple sleeping, Joanna standing watch. Each picture is a piece of their shared journey, a testament to how far they've come. Before bed, Joanna heads out for one last check on Maple. She finds the mare resting, eyes half closed, head low. Joanna leans against the stall, whispering a promise into the dark. "I'm not going anywhere, girl. Not tonight. Not tomorrow." She stands there until the cold seeps through her coat, and her fingers go numb, until Maple sighs and settles deeper into the straw. Back in the house, Joanna finds Emery waiting in the hallway. Neither of them speaks, but Emery steps close and hugs Joanna, quick and awkward, then disappears into her room. Joanna stands there a long time, hand pressed to her shoulder, heart aching and full. Upstairs, Emery opens her journal and writes, "Some scars heal slower than others, but even the worst ones can fade when you let someone close." She closes the book and sets it on her windowsill, looking out over the dark, silent barn, where hope flickers warm against the Montana cold. Montana mornings in March are a gamble, sometimes hopeful, sometimes biting. On this particular morning, frost rims the windows, sunlight turning the farmyard into a temporary palace of diamonds. But there's something off in the air, an unease Joanna feels even before she pulls on her boots. Maybe it's the silence, deeper than usual, or the way the crows circle above the barn. Either way, she's awake before dawn, drawn by a sense that the fragile peace they've built is about to break. Joanna moves quietly, careful not to disturb Emery, who started sleeping with her sketchbook on the pillow. She heads out, coffee in hand, boots crunching across crusted snow. The barn smells of hay, old leather, and something else. Sharp, bitter. The scent stings her nose as soon as she enters. Maple stands in her stall, head low, legs braced. Her muzzle is flecked with foam, strands of spit trailing to the bedding. For a split second, Joanna's brain won't accept what she's seeing. Then panic jolts her into action. "Maple!" Her voice cracks. She pushes into the stall, nearly slipping. Maple's sides heave, breath rattling, her eyes wide with wild confusion. Her head swings back and forth, almost drunkenly, and her hind legs threaten to buckle. The bucket, untouched, smells sharp, chemical wrong. Joanna tips it out, the mash spilling in a dark puddle. She catches a whiff, sweet, acrid, unmistakably foreign. She snatches her phone, hands shaking, and dials the vet's emergency line. "It's Maple. She's been poisoned. Please, hurry." The next hour is a blur. Joanna shoves fresh bedding around Maple, then dashes out to the barnyard, hunting for anything out of place. At the edge of the haystack, she finds it. A grain sack ripped open, contents scattered, the kernels glistening with a faint blue powder. Her heart sinks. This wasn't an accident. The vet arrives fast, tires throwing gravel, jacket half-zipped in the rush. Dr. Pennington's face goes hard when she sees Maple's condition. "This is organophosphate. Rat poison, maybe. She's lucky you found her early." Joanna's chest tightens as she helps restrain Maple, holding the trembling mare's head while Dr. Pennington administers an antidote. "She'll be touch and go for a day or two. Keep her hydrated, and call me if she gets worse." Before leaving, the vet eyes the tainted grain. "You need to report this." Joanna calls the sheriff, voice trembling with anger. Sheriff Marsh is an old friend, or he was, before everything in Joanna's life changed. He examines the grain, listens to her story, then sighs, rubbing his temples. "Neighbor down the road's complained before. Says you're turning this place into a sanctuary for welfare cases and junk horses." He's not shy about his feelings. Joanna bristles. "He wouldn't—" Marsh holds up a hand. "We'll investigate. But you know how this town is. Some folks don't like anything that reminds them what they're ignoring." Joanna clenches her fists, fighting the urge to scream. Back inside, she finds Emery standing by Maple's stall, ashen-faced, clutching her sketchbook to her chest like a shield. "What happened?" Her voice barely more than a whisper. Joanna can't hide the truth. Someone tried to hurt her, poisoned her feed. She's fighting, but it's bad. Emery's eyes go wide, fear and fury twisting her features. Why? Why would anyone do that? Joanna kneels beside her, wrapping her arms around Emery's trembling shoulders, because some people see weakness as a target, or maybe they just don't want to be reminded that broken things can still matter. The rest of the day is a grinding vigil. Joanna sits with Maple, sponging her mouth, coaxing her to drink. She talks softly, words blurring together. Old stories, apologies, prayers. Emery paces in and out, sometimes scribbling furiously, sometimes just watching. They barely eat. Maple's breathing is ragged. Her legs wobble. Once she sinks to the straw, body shuddering with every breath. Joanna presses her forehead to Maple's neck, whispering, "Don't leave us. Not now." The phone rings late in the afternoon. Sheriff Marsh. "Got the feed tested. No question. It's deliberate. I'm not naming names until I'm sure, but I've got my suspicions." He pauses, his voice softening. "You all right?" Joanna almost laughs. "No, but I'm not running away, if that's what you're asking." He grunts approval. "Good. You know, most folks around here respect what you're trying to do. Don't let the loud ones make you forget that." Joanna hangs up, her anger replaced by exhaustion. She steps outside, letting the cold air wash over her face, trying to steady her nerves. The snow in the pasture is churned up with hoofprints. Maple's desperate circles from earlier. Joanna sinks to the ground, knees pulled to her chest. The weight of it all presses down. Every old wound, every fresh betrayal. Footsteps crunch behind her. Emery sits down beside her in the snow, silent at first. Then, quietly, "Is it always going to be this hard?" Joanna doesn't answer right away. She watches her breath drift up, the sky bruised with purple and gold. Sometimes. But it's worth it. Because the world is full of people who want you to believe nothing broken can heal. And you've got to be stubborn enough to prove them wrong. Emery nods, wiping her face with the back of her hand. "I don't want to go back to the way things were before Maple." Joanna looks at her, heart twisting. "Me neither." Night falls slow. Joanna and Emery camp out in the barn, wrapped in blankets, taking turns checking Maple's vitals. The old mare hangs on, breath growing steadier, her body fighting. Emery sketches by flashlight, drawing Maple with a halo of light. "She's a warrior," she whispers, "like you." Joanna squeezes her hand, tears glinting in the dark, near midnight. Maple lifts her head, eyes clearer. She snorts softly, then nudges Joanna's hand for the first time. Hope, so fragile, so fierce, flickers between them. Joanna presses her cheek to Maple's neck, whispering, "You're not going anywhere. Not while we still need each other." Outside, the wind howls across the fields, but inside the barn, trust is fighting its way back, breath by precious breath. Dawn brings no relief, just a raw gray light and a lingering ache in every muscle. Joanna barely slept, keeping vigil by Maple's side while Emery dozed in a sleeping bag on the barn's cold floor, sketchbook clutched to her chest. Maple made it through the night, but her breathing remained shallow and her eyes still show too much white. Every hour, Joanna checks her temperature, offers water, and whispers encouragement. By mid-morning, Maple stands shakily, sweat damp but alert. For the first time since the poisoning, hope begins to flutter in Joanna's chest. That fragile hope is immediately tested by the world outside. Word of the poisoning spreads faster than wind across the fields. At the feed store, strangers nod at Joanna with guarded sympathy. On social media, news of the attack fans old divisions. Comments pour in, half supportive, half laced with contempt. Why waste time on broken animals? That mare should have been put down. Just more drama from the Pierce woman. Some are anonymous, others carry names Joanna knows from her childhood. She wants to ignore them, but their words crawl beneath her skin, fueling both anger and doubt. Emery, too, sees the comments. She hunches over her phone at breakfast, scrolling through endless arguments, jaw tight with silent fury. Why do they care? She bursts out. It's not their horse, not their business. Joanna tries to brush it off, but Emery's voice is thin, trembling. You said people would help, but all they want is to see us fail. The tension builds, both at home and across town. Old neighbors, some who once brought casseroles after Joanna's breakdown, now whisper behind her back. She's unstable. She should mind her own business. The local paper prints a letter to the editor, unsigned but unmistakably hostile. What message are we sending by pouring resources into animals that are better off put down? Our town has enough problems. For Joanna, it feels like betrayal layered atop betrayal. She grits her teeth and keeps her focus on Maple and Emery. But the pain simmers. Then comes the invitation. The town council asks Joanna to attend their next meeting. The request is pointed, almost confrontational. Some townsfolk have raised concerns, the email reads. Your input would be appreciated. Joanna knows what's coming. A parade of complaints, calls for common sense, and barely concealed disdain. She dreads it, but knows she can't back down. Not now. The day of the meeting, the barn is busy. Dr. Pennington stops by, checks Maple's progress, and quietly slips Joanna a card for a trauma support group. Don't let them shake you, the vet says quietly. You're doing more good than you know. Joanna thanks her, then dresses carefully, smoothing her hair and pinning on the only brooch her mother left her. A tiny silver horse, now tarnished but full of memory. Emery insists on coming, sketchbook tucked under her arm, hair brushed and straightened for the first time in weeks. We're not hiding, she says firmly. Joanna squeezes her hand, grateful for the solidarity, for the stubborn fire in Emery's eyes. They arrive at the town hall to a packed room. The regular council sits stone-faced behind folding tables. Half the audience is familiar. Neighbors, classmates, parents from school. The other half are strangers, faces lit by the glow of cell phones as they live-stream the proceedings. Joanna feels all the old nerves. Her hands shake, her heart pounds. But she sits tall, Emery at her side. The first speakers are harsh. That horse is dangerous, a rancher growls. Kids play near her fence. Another complains about property values, about stray animals drawing the wrong element. Someone else, voice thick with anger, calls out, letting broken things fester just brings more trouble. Maybe she needs help more than that animal does. The words sting. Joanna feels her throat tighten, 1,000 comebacks swirling in her mind, all useless. A few voices rise in her defense. Mrs. Kincaid, whose own grandson rides at the therapeutic center, stands up. We're supposed to be neighbors. When did compassion become a crime? There's polite applause, but it's drowned by mutters and glares. At last, it's Joanna's turn. She stands slowly, her knees stiff, and looks around the room. Instead of speaking, she motions toward the door. Emery slips out and returns a moment later, leading Maple, bandaged, scarred, but upright and calm, through the side entrance. The crowd gasps. Maple's presence, so massive and quiet, changes the energy in the room. Even the harshest critics fall silent. Joanna takes a deep breath, voice surprisingly steady. This is Maple. You all know what happened to her. What someone did, thinking she didn't matter. She places a gentle hand on Maple's neck. But Maple's not the broken one. We are. Every time we decide that pain means useless. Every time we look away from suffering because it's easier to pretend it doesn't exist. The room is hushed, everyone's attention riveted. She continues, voice growing stronger. I used to believe that only things that could be fixed were worth saving. That's a lie. Healing is slow. It's messy. Sometimes you don't ever get all the way back. But you don't walk away just because something is hard. You stay. You love what's in front of you, and you fight for it, even if the world says it's not worth it. Maple stands quietly, head lowered, her presence almost regal. Emery's sketchbook trembles in her hands, but she stands tall beside Joanna, not flinching from the stares. For a long moment, no one speaks. Finally, one of the council members clears his throat. We appreciate your input, Miss Pierce. We'll take your comments under advisement. It's official speak for meeting over, but something in the room has shifted. A crack in the wall of indifference, the smallest spark of understanding. Afterward, outside in the cold, neighbors approach. Some nod silently, offering small smiles. Others keep their distance, muttering. Joanna is exhausted, but Emery is buzzing with pride. You didn't let them make you small, she says, slipping her arm through Joanna's. You made them look. Back at the ranch, Maple stands in her paddock, staring at the horizon. Joanna and Emery sit on the porch steps, watching the sunset bleed gold and pink across the sky. The protest wasn't won, not really. The town is still divided, old wounds still open. But Maple is alive, the farm is still theirs. And for the first time in a long time, Joanna feels the tiniest spark of hope that maybe, just maybe, the world can change. That night, Joanna finds a note in her mailbox. Thank you for not giving up. Some of us are still learning how. There's no signature, but Joanna folds it into her journal, letting the words settle in her heart. In the barn, Maple stirs in her stall, the quiet heartbeat of resilience echoing through the dark. And Joanna realizes that, win or lose, she has already changed the story, just by refusing to leave. Spring winds rattle the window panes as school lets out early for the holiday weekend. The air inside the old farmhouse is heavy with the scent of melting earth and something more fragile, anxiety that clings to the corners like dust. Emery sits hunched over the kitchen table, sketchbook open, her pencil moving in nervous fits and starts. She's drawn Maple a dozen times already this week, but today she only manages frantic outlines before tearing each page out and crumpling it into a growing pile by her elbow. Joanna watches from across the room, coffee cooling in her mug, unsure how to help. Since the town council meeting, everything feels sharper, like the whole world is watching. At school, whispers follow Emery, sometimes pitying, sometimes cruel. A boy in her math class, Cody Turner, has started sneering every time she walks by. Hey, horse girl, drawn any losers lately? The insult stings worse because it's so public, and Emery can't shake the feeling that everyone is waiting for her to break. It comes to a head on Friday. During lunch, Emery finds her locker plastered with printouts, scans of her sketches of Maple, badly photocopied and scrawled over in red marker. Broken horse, broken kid. Underneath, someone scribbled, "You and your mom should move back to the city." The whole hallway buzzes as she rips the papers down, fists shaking. No one steps in. Her best friend from last year won't even meet her eyes. Emery bolts from the building as soon as the final bell rings, running all the way home, lungs burning. She skips the kitchen, slams her bedroom door, and doesn't answer when Joanna knocks. Instead, she throws herself face first into her pillow and lets the tears come in hot, silent waves. When she finally lifts her head, the sun has started to set. The world outside glows gold, but Emery feels only hollow. She sits up and glares at her reflection in the mirror. You're not tough. You're just weird. Why do you even care about that horse? The question bounces around her skull, impossible to answer. She can hear Joanna downstairs, moving quietly through the kitchen, pretending not to worry. But the worry hangs between them, heavy as thunder. As darkness falls, Emery throws on her boots, stuffs her sketchbook into her backpack, and slips out the back door. The air is cool and sharp, the grass already slick with dew. She moves on autopilot, feet crunching down the gravel drive, then slipping onto the path that runs along the ridge behind the barn. The world is silent except for the distant call of a nightbird and the hush of wind through last year's dead grass. It's not until she's a quarter-mile from the house, the barn lights shrinking behind her, that she lets herself breathe. There's a wildness out here, a sense that anything might happen. She climbs the slope, brushing past sharp branches and half-dead sage until she reaches the ridge's highest point. The sky above is endless and velvet black, stars pricking the darkness. Emery sits down hard on the cold ground, knees hugged to her chest, and lets her mind spin. Every terrible word at school, every jeer and laugh rushes back, and she wishes, desperately, that she could disappear. "Why did we come here?" she whispers, voice lost on the wind. "Why did you have to drag me into your mess, Joanna?" For a while, she just sits, shivering, tracing shapes in the dirt with her shoe. Then she hears a sound behind her, the unmistakable clop of hooves. Heart pounding, Emery turns to see Maple, loose from her paddock, moving up the ridge. The mare's movements are careful, slow, as if she understands the gravity of night. Emery blinks, tears forgotten for a moment, as she rises and lets Maple approach. Maple stands just out of arm's reach, breath steaming in the chill. Emery holds out her hand, and Maple edges closer, her good eye steady and calm. "You followed me." Emery's voice cracks with disbelief and something like relief. "Or maybe I followed you, huh?" Maple's ear flicks, and she takes another slow step. Emery sinks down, cross-legged, and the mare lowers herself beside her, heavy body folding to the ground with a sigh. For a long time, they just sit together in the darkness. Emery pulls out her sketchbook, and by the dim light of her phone, begins to draw Maple curled beside her on the ridge, stars scattered above. The act is soothing, grounding, and soon the storm in her chest quiets. Hours pass. Back at the house, Joanna discovers Emery's empty room, panic slicing through her calm. She grabs a flashlight, throws on a jacket, and rushes into the night, calling Emery's name. Her voice bounces back from the empty fields, the silence a threat. She searches the barn, the creek, the old tractor shed. Nothing. Only when she follows the trampled grass up the ridge does she catch a glimmer of movement in the moonlight. At the top, Joanna finds them, Emery and Maple side by side in the grass, the girl's head leaning against the mare's warm shoulder. Joanna's fear boils over into relief and anger all at once. "Emery!" she gasps, breathless. "Why did you run? I've been worried sick." Emery looks up, cheeks streaked with tears, but her voice steadier than it's been in days. "She's the only one who doesn't ask me to be different. She doesn't care if I'm weird or sad or mad at everyone." Maple lets out a soft snort, as if in agreement. Joanna lowers herself beside them, not pushing, just sitting close enough to let Emery know she's there. For a while, nobody says anything. Then Joanna whispers, "I don't want you to be different either. I just want you to be okay." The three of them, girl, woman, and horse, breathe together under the open sky, a fragile truce in a bruised world. When the cold grows too sharp to ignore, Joanna helps Emery to her feet. They lead Maple slowly down the ridge, the flashlight beam bobbing ahead, shadows stretching behind them. Emery clutches her sketchbook, fingers tight, but her steps are sure. Back at the barn, Maple settles into her stall, calm and content. Emery lingers by the gate, running her hand down the mare's thick neck. "Thank you," she whispers, not sure if she's speaking to the horse, to Joanna, or to herself. Inside the house, Joanna makes hot chocolate, piling extra whipped cream on Emery's cup. They sit together on the couch, silent but together. Eventually, Emery leans her head on Joanna's shoulder, and Joanna wraps an arm around her, holding her close. Later, Emery writes in her journal, "She's the only one who lets me be me. Maybe that's what I needed all along." She leaves the window cracked, letting the cool spring air drift in, and sleeps deeper than she has in weeks. Out in the barn, Maple shifts in her stall, ears twitching, and dreams, if horses dream, of a girl who finally found a place she could stay. Montana's spring is never gentle. By late April, the sun grows bold, and the wind picks up, rattling the windows and rolling dry tumbleweeds across the open fields. The air smells of new grass and something more dangerous: smoke. For days, a wildfire has been burning miles to the south, but by the end of the week, the news is filled with warnings. Red flag conditions, the radio drones. Evacuate if advised. Have your plan ready. Joanna pretends not to worry, but every time she looks out over the brown grass and the dry fence line, her heart hammers faster. At night, she checks the emergency bag in the closet, packs water and apples in the truck, and lies awake listening for sirens. Emery senses the tension too. She lingers closer, not just to Joanna but to Maple, spending long afternoons in the barn sketching the mare's strong back and soft eyes. Maple is thriving now, her ribs fading under new muscle, her scars covered by a glossy chestnut coat. Still, she stands at the barn door most nights, snorting at the wind, unsettled by some instinct deeper than memory. The day the fire comes is hotter than usual, the sky a flat, blinding white. Joanna and Emery are working on the back fence when the wind shifts, carrying the unmistakable stench of burning grass. They freeze as a neighbor's pickup skids to a halt by the road. "It's jumped the highway," the man shouts. "If it shifts again, you've got 30 minutes, maybe less." In the distance, a wall of smoke darkens the horizon, and the dry grass begins to hiss as ash starts to fall. Joanna's training takes over. "Go pack a bag," she yells, voice shaking only a little. "Shoes, phone, anything you need." Emery bolts toward the house. Joanna sprints to the barn, her mind running through the plan she's practiced but hoped never to use. Grab Maple, halter her, lead her to the trailer. She yanks open the tack room, fingers trembling as she fumbles with the latch, always already alert, nostrils flaring, stamping the straw. Joanna throws a lead rope over her neck and tugs, gentle but urgent. In the house, Emery crams her sketchbook, a flashlight, and her favorite t-shirt into a backpack. Then, at the last moment, she remembers her journal, left in the barn loft after last night's writing. She races back, darting through the swirling smoke, only to collide with Joanna in the barn aisle. "I need my journal," Emery cries, wild-eyed. "I can't leave it." "Emery, there's no time." Joanna grabs her arm, but Emery wrenches free, racing toward the loft stairs. Joanna curses under her breath, then looks at Maple, shaking, but holding steady. "Stay," she begs, then bolts after Emery. The barn is filling with smoke now. The fire somewhere close. Too close. Emery scrambles up the rickety ladder, coughing, grabs her journal from the hay bale, and nearly slips in her rush back down. Joanna catches her at the bottom, yanking her into a tight, terrified hug. "Never do that again," she says, her voice rough with fear and relief. Together they run for the stall. Suddenly, Maple jerks the lead rope free and bolts into the aisle, her instincts overriding every lesson learned. "No!" Joanna screams, chasing after her. The mare charges toward the back door. The fire's crackle now audible, smoke pouring in around the frames. Joanna has to make a split-second choice. Get Emery out, or follow Maple into the chaos. For a heartbeat, she hesitates. Then she sees the terror in Emery's eyes, the journal clutched to her chest, and knows, if Maple dies, they all lose something irreplaceable. Joanna thrusts Emery outside, shoving the backpack into her arms. "Go to the truck. If I'm not back in 5 minutes, drive to the neighbor's place. Don't wait for me." "But Mom," Emery starts, but Joanna is already gone, plunging back into the barn. Inside, the smoke is blinding. Joanna moves by memory, calling Maple's name, the sound swallowed by the roar outside. She finds the mare in the back stall, trapped by fallen beams and panicking, kicking at the walls. Joanna's hands move faster than her thoughts. She ducks under a broken rail, slips the halter over Maple's head, and talks in a steady, low voice. Every bit of calm she's ever learned. "Easy, girl. We're getting out. You've come too far. I'm not leaving you." The fire roars closer, sucking the oxygen from the barn. Joanna leads Maple through the smoke, ducking and stumbling, embers falling around them like angry stars. The world shrinks to heat, pain, and the sound of Maple's heavy breathing in her ear. At the door, they burst out together, Joanna gasping for air, Maple snorting and stamping but alive. Emery is waiting by the truck, tears streaking her face, arms locked around her backpack. She lets out a sob of relief when Joanna and Maple appear, covered in soot, hair singed but eyes blazing with victory. Joanna fumbles with the trailer ramp, and together, they coax Maple inside. Joanna throws the truck into gear, flooring it down the drive as the flames creep along the fence line, snapping at their heels. They make it to the neighbor's yard, just as the first fire engine barrels up the road. From the safety of the truck cab, they watch as volunteers battle the flames, hoses hissing, men and women shouting orders. The barn is ringed in fire, but by some miracle, the wind shifts again, and the blaze stops just short. The pasture is blackened, the air thick with smoke, but the old barn stands, battered but unbroken. For hours they sit in silence, Emery's head on Joanna's shoulder, Maple breathing quietly in the trailer. When the last flames are doused, they walk back together. 3 survivors in a world suddenly new. The barn is scorched, but standing, the house is safe. Maple steps out, shakes herself, and lowers her head to nuzzle Emery's chest, then Joanna's hand. That night, Joanna lies awake in her bed, windows open to the cool, smoky air. She can hear Maple in the paddock, hear Emery scribbling in her journal. The fear is still there, but it's smaller now, crowded out by gratitude and something fierce and bright, a certainty that whatever comes next, they can face it together. Downstairs, Emery sits at the kitchen table writing in the margins of her journal. "Today, I learned what it means to be brave. Not because you aren't scared, but because you show up anyway, for the ones who need you most." Out in the barn, Maple sighs and settles into her straw. The old wounds ache, but there's peace now. Peace earned the hard way, through fire and loss and stubborn, stubborn love. Spring in Montana is stubborn, thawing slowly as the land recovers from winter's grip, and now from fire. At the Pierce Ranch, green grass pokes through the charred pasture. Birds return to nest in the rafters of the barn, and a sense of fragile hope settles over everything. The repairs are slow but steady. Neighbors, those who once kept their distance, begin to drop by, some offering lumber, others just quiet company. For Joanna and Emery, every board they nail, every fence they fix, is another reminder that the world, while cruel, is also capable of healing. Maple recovers too, though her scars remain. The burns on her legs and sides fade to pink patches, her mane growing back in rough, uneven tufts. Yet there's a new energy in the mare, a quiet, dignified strength. She follows Joanna around the yard, nudges Emery for apples, stands calmly when thunder rattles the sky. Maple, once broken and abandoned, has become the anchor for both girl and woman, her presence a steady heartbeat in their rebuilt lives. Joanna knows Maple's journey isn't finished. One morning, as she brushes the mare in the sunshine, she glances at Emery reading on the fence and says, "I've been thinking. She could do more, you know. More than just survive." Emery looks up, surprise and hope in her eyes. "Like what?" Joanna hesitates, then hands Emery a flyer from the mailbox, a call for therapy horses at a new riding center an hour away. They help kids, veterans, people who've been hurt. I thought maybe, if Maple was ready, we could give her a chance to help someone else. They talk about it for days. It isn't an easy decision. Emery worries Maple will be lonely or afraid. Joanna worries she's just trying to fix the world again, pouring herself into lost causes. But every time Maple stands patiently while Emery braids her mane, or lets the neighbor's toddler stroke her nose, it becomes clearer. Maple's gentleness is a gift meant to be shared. On a bright Saturday, they load Maple into the trailer and drive out to Hope Springs Therapeutic Center, a low, wide building surrounded by white-fenced paddocks. The director, Miss Lott, meets them with a clipboard and a welcoming smile. "We work with trauma survivors," she explains as she leads them around the grounds. "Some of our riders haven't spoken in months. Some flinch at every noise. But when they meet a horse, especially one that's known hardship, they begin to see something different in themselves." Joanna is nervous as she leads Maple into the arena, but the mare is calm, her big body relaxed, ears flicking as she surveys the other horses. Children, some in wheelchairs, others silent and wide-eyed, line up along the fence. Miss Lott brings a teenage boy forward, Jaden, small for his age, face marked by scars. He stands back, wary, until Joanna nods. "Go ahead," she whispers. She's gentle. Jaden inches closer, hand trembling as he reaches for Maple's mane. The mare lowers her head, eyes soft, and waits. After a long moment, Jaden's fingers brush Maple's nose. He smiles, tiny but real. Joanna blinks back tears as Miss Lott beams. "She's perfect," the director whispers. "She's what our kids need." Each week, Maple works with new children and adults. A war veteran with haunted eyes brushes her flank, talking quietly about the horses he knew back home. A girl in foster care, silent since losing her parents, giggles as Maple licks her hand. The mare's scars become conversation starters, evidence that survival is possible, that wounds don't make you less worthy of love. Joanna and Emery visit every month, sometimes volunteering, sometimes just sitting on the grass and watching Maple in her new role. One afternoon, a teenager approaches Joanna, tears streaming down his face after a session with Maple. "She's like a big, soft mirror," he whispers. "She doesn't judge me. She just listens." Joanna's heart aches with understanding. Emery, too, finds her place at Hope Springs. She draws portraits of the horses, teaches the younger kids how to sketch, and even writes a poem that the center hangs in the main hallway. We all have scars that show and scars that hide. But gentle hands and gentle hearts remind us we can still ride. Through Maple, Emery learns the power of presence, that sometimes the best thing you can do is sit quietly and let someone else come to you. Through Maple, Joanna finds the courage to return to the hospital, not as a nurse but as a volunteer, reading to children, offering comfort in ways she never thought she could again. Months pass. The ranch is greener, stronger. The fire is a memory, one that still surfaces in nightmares, but that no longer dictates every waking thought. Maple grows into her new role, carrying wounded children and broken veterans, letting their grief and hope mingle with her own. She moves slow and steady, unafraid of tears or trembling hands. On their last visit before winter, Joanna and Emery sit beside Maple under a golden tree. "She did more for us than we ever did for her," Emery says quietly, fingers tracing a scar on Maple's shoulder. Joanna nods, eyes shining with gratitude and something close to awe. "She taught us how to keep going, how to love what's broken even when we're still mending." That night, Emery writes in her journal, "Sometimes healing means letting go. Sometimes it means holding on. Maple showed us how to do both." In the cool dusk, the three of them, woman, girl, and horse, stand together in the paddock, shadows stretching long and hopeful across the grass. For the first time, Joanna lets herself believe in the possibility of peace. Autumn settles softly over Montana, the air crisp and clean, the sky an endless bowl of blue. The Pierce Ranch stands sturdy and whole, patched with new boards and memories, its scars healing along with those who call it home. Trees burn gold on the hillside, and the pasture glows with afternoon light as Joanna, Emery, and Maple walk together one last time before the first frost. Life has found its rhythm again. Joanna's hands are strong and steady. She moves through each day with a purpose that once seemed lost forever. She still volunteers at the hospital, but now she carries no shame, only gentleness, and the deep understanding that true healing isn't about erasing pain, but about learning to carry it with grace. Emery, taller and bolder than she was that first winter, has started her own art club at school. Her sketches of Maple and the other therapy horses hang in classrooms, and her old reputation as horse girl has changed. Kids come to her now when they need help or just someone to listen. And Maple, the gentle giant, is as much a legend as she is a friend. Her photo, head high, scars and all, hangs in the Hope Springs hallway, captioned, "You are not alone." The farm is busier than ever. Some weekends, small groups of kids from the center come to visit, brushing Maple's mane and helping with chores. They gather in the barn for hot chocolate and stories. Joanna sits in the old rocking chair, Emery perched on a hay bale, both of them learning that family can be chosen, and that kindness is a language spoken without words. One crisp afternoon, Joanna receives an invitation to speak at a trauma care summit in Billings. The email is formal, but the request is simple. Share your story. Help us understand what real healing looks like. Joanna hesitates. Public speaking terrifies her, but Emery grabs her hand and says, "You have to go, Mom. You have to tell them about Maple, about us." So Joanna prepares, writing her notes late into the night, tears sometimes slipping down her cheeks as she revisits the hardest memories. When the day arrives, she stands backstage, nerves dancing in her stomach, and thinks of all the times she almost gave up. Then she hears Maple's name announced and steps into the light, the faces of doctors, nurses, counselors, and survivors turning toward her. She begins, voice clear but low. "It's easy to love a champion. It's easy to celebrate what the world already calls strong. But loving something or someone who's been abandoned, who's considered broken, takes a different kind of heart. She tells Maple's story from the start. The auction nobody watched, the blizzard, the laughter and the doubt, the stubborn hope that refused to let go. She speaks of Emery's pain, her own failures, the cruelty that tried to destroy what little they'd rebuilt. She describes the fire, the long nights in the barn, the countless times she almost quit. She looks at the audience, many with tears in their eyes, and says, Maple wasn't just a horse. She was a mirror for every patient I gave up on, for every piece of myself I thought I couldn't fix, for Emery, who needed to know that just surviving is its own kind of bravery. Maple taught us that true healing isn't about fixing what's broken. It's about staying, even when nothing is fixed yet. It's about refusing to look away from suffering, ours or anyone else's. She ends with a question. In your own life, who's your maple? What's the thing everyone says isn't worth it, but that your soul can't walk away from? Loving the broken teaches us how to hold ourselves, how to forgive, how to persist, how to hope. The applause is quiet at first, then builds, a wave of gratitude that leaves Joanna breathless. Afterwards, counselors and trauma survivors approach her, thanking her for telling the truth, not the glossy, easy version, but the hard, honest one. Joanna returns home to a fall evening glittering with stars. Emery waits on the porch, Maple's warm shape grazing quietly in the dusk. How'd it go? Emery asks, worry hidden behind casual words. Joanna sits beside her, drawing Emery close. I think people really listened. I think they needed to hear it. Maybe I needed to hear it again, too. They walk out to the pasture, Maple raising her head, her old wise eyes soft in the moonlight. Emery presses her face into Maple's mane, whispering secrets she'll never tell. Joanna strokes the mare's neck, fingers tracing the faded scars, her heart full of a bittersweet joy. They stand together for a long time, listening to the wind in the grass and the quiet sounds of a world that keeps turning, no matter how broken or beautiful. Joanna feels a peace she never thought she'd find, the kind that grows from loving deeply and refusing to let go, even when the world says you should. Later, in the warmth of their kitchen, Emery finishes her last sketch for the year. Maple, standing proud in the snow, a girl and a woman at her side. She titles it, Still Here. On the back she writes, sometimes healing means standing in the ashes, looking at all you've lost, and loving what's left. Joanna adds her own line beneath it. We can't always fix what's broken, but we can choose to stay. We can choose to love anyway. That night, as they prepare for bed, Joanna turns to Emery. You know, I think Maple was our second chance, for both of us. Emery smiles, tears shining in her eyes. For all of us, Mom. Outside, the stars burn bright over the ranch. In the barn, Maple dreams of storms weathered, fires survived, and hands that never let go. In a world that so often turns away from the broken, one stubborn horse, a determined woman, and a brave young girl chose to stay. It's easy to celebrate strength and wholeness, but true courage is loving what's wounded, what's scarred, what the world would rather forget. Healing doesn't mean everything is perfect. It means you keep showing up, keep loving, keep trying. Like Maple wasn't just a horse. She was a lesson, that what's broken can teach us how to hold on, how to forgive, how to become whole again, not in spite of our scars, but because of them. If you found something moving in Maple's story, please like and follow the channel. Remember, there's always hope, even in the broken places. Maybe your own maple is just waiting for you to notice, to care, and to stay.